Expensive rent. Buy a house now before it's too late. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode at NOVARISE Invest, your channel for financial education. So today's video, it's in response to one that I released a couple of weeks ago, and where we talked about the possibility of a real estate market crash, and I showed details about how it wasn't going to happen. And in the end, I actually asked for everyone's opinion as to what you should be doing with your money. Should you go ahead and rush and buy a property, or should you just remain in the status quo and do nothing and wait and see what happens on the sideline while risking your rent from going up? So today's episode will be all about rent and why you shouldn't really stay on the sidelines and keep waiting for a change, because a change is not going to happen. I mean, there will be some changes, but the change might not necessarily benefit you, because from the information that I gather, things are going to get more expensive. So let's go ahead and get started on the episode to see what I'm referring to. So before we dive in, let's just make sure we are all on the same page. So we're talking about, should you buy a house or a property now, or should you continue to rent and do nothing, right? So what we're trying to tackle here is the situation with the increasing rent, which doesn't necessarily benefit you if you're a renter. And we're looking into considering the option of you becoming a homeowner, because as the cost of living increase, especially with your rent, I mean, if you're going to pay such a high amount for a rental, you might as well become a homeowner and just, go the extra mile and pay a higher premium for the house. At least you're owning the house, as opposed to paying for high rent for a property that is not usually yours. Now, the good news is that out of this situation, if you happen to be a real estate investor, this is actually benefiting you even more, especially if you bought a house during the pandemic. In response to one of my videos where I actually show you the stats about rents increasing and why it would be a good idea to buy. So the episode's right here on the screen if you need a bit of a memory refresher. But if you haven't seen it, I invite you to check it out after you're done with this video, of course. But back to the tablet, once again, for those who actually bought a property during the pandemic, now you're reaping great benefits, because not only you bought at a more affordable pricing, but also you bought it with cheap money because the rates are actually low. Now we're dealing with properties are actually costing more money and also have higher interest rates, which in essence, it's translating to a more expensive property. However, for you as the investor, as the rents continue to increase, that means your cash flow will continue to go up as well, which in essence, it will translate to revenue. So you did a good move back then. And even if you decide to purchase now with the high cost of borrowing money, you're still getting a great deal out of everything, because you are increasing your cash flow. So now let's just check some stats to corroborate the point that I'm making with actual factual research that I have found and want to show you. So once again, just like I mentioned in the video that I called out, rents have gone up historically, right? So I decided to pull up a chart here that dates back to December 2019, which is the timeline and where the COVID situation started all the way to today. And as you can see here, you'll see some fluctuations, but I want to make sure you understand that these fluctuations does not necessarily mean that the rents have gone down in price. In fact, what these numbers mean is that the rent increases have slowed down, which doesn't necessarily translate to rents going down in price. So let's say, for example, in December 2019, rents were going up at an average of 3.245%. But then if you fast forward to January 2021, rents were only going up by 1.619%. Once again, it doesn't mean it dropped. It just means it just continued to increase at a slower rate. And now fast forward to 2022, in June, we have that rents are actually going up by 5.6%. Okay, so that is good news for those who are real estate investors, not necessarily good news for those who are currently renting. So you do need to make a decision as to what you want to do. Do you want to continue to keep renting and pay for the high cost, or do you want to become a homeowner and possibly a real estate investor yourself? Why not? You can always consider the option of doing some house hacking where you live on one side and you rent the other, right? Now, to further corroborate my point, here's an article from Fortune magazine, and where it talks about the great rent squeeze. And it refers to landlords jacking up rents, and it's the single largest factor in May contributing to the red hot inflation report. And as we scroll down, we see that price increases in food and fuel have made life more difficult for every American. But housing took by far the biggest bite out of May's price hikes. The latest CPI marked 0.6% increase over the last month's core inflation, and 0.24% of that increase came down to housing. That means rising housing costs accounted for 40% of the price hikes in the latest core inflation numbers. Fortune magazine also discussed that housing costs account for nearly a third of the CPI basket. Critics have argued that the way the CPI calculates housing can be inefficient and even fails to recognize the emergence of housing bubbles. But the large portion of the CPI, Consumer Price Index for those who don't know, occupied by housing means that these costs tend to be an oversized driver of inflation. And as I showed you in the prior graph, rents were rising in 2021, but did not start figuring into inflation until earlier this year, as it can take up to 12 months before inflation starts sniffing out rent surges. But with rents now up 15.3% over last year, housing costs are beginning to play into inflation in a big way. So this means that we might not see the full-blown picture. Maybe rents are actually higher than we anticipated, and they're just starting to reflect into the inflation numbers, which means it is a huge opportunity for you, the real estate investor, to be able to offset some of the losses that you might have gotten in prior years due to the eviction moratorium. In fact, asking rents have been rising fast since the beginning of the year as the national housing shortage pushed more and more prospective homebuyers to continue or return to renting. Once again, if you are a renter, consider it. You either buy a house now or never, because it doesn't seem like the housing prices are going to go down according to the research and all the episodes that I've been releasing over the past couple of weeks. And as you can see, interest rates continue to go up, which means the cost of borrowing, it's going to go up in value. And given the inflation numbers, that means your rent is going to go up. So it's a matter of choice now as to what you want to do, whether continue renting and being a participant of the high rent prices, or whether you want to go to the other side and become a homeowner. Now, I want to pause for a second and ask for your opinion. What do you think about what I'm sharing so far? Let me know down in the comment section below, and your comment will help me get to know you better, so that way I can design a much better episode that can meet your needs in terms of what you're looking to learn. Now, back to the episode. Moving along with the article, the national median monthly asking rent in May surpassed $2,000 for the first time, and in some cities, it's way off the charts. As you can see in Manhattan, where rents have been surging at double the national rate for months, the median rental price is now just shy of $4,000. And given New York City's landlord infamous requirement that renters' salary be 40 times higher than their rent, renting a one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan, it's only an option if you can boast $160,000 salary, okay? And things don't stop here. For homeowners, the situation is even worse. Despite a surge in mortgage rates that have helped cool off the historically hot homebuyers market that has seen prices soar by 19.8% over the last year, the housing market boom is forecast to continue climbing for another year at least. Once again, housing prices are going to continue to go up. So stop waiting for it to come down. It's not going to happen, at least for another 12 months. And it's a matter of choice as to whether you want to keep renting or paying high rent. So if you have the choice, if you have the financial means to go ahead and become a homeowner, I will suggest you to reconsider that. Maybe that's the best option for you, at least for now. Now, I have another article right here from the Wall Street Journal for those who need additional evidence. So historically, bidding wars have always been more of an item of those who are actually looking to buy homes. But now you'd be surprised to see how bidding wars have been evolving over time. And the Wall Street Journal is here to show that to us. So as you can see here in the title, bidding wars overheated the home buying market, and now they're coming for renters. Competition among renters means many tenants feel compelled to pay more each month than what the landlord is asking. And we have a nice story here about Donna Johns. So when Donna Johns and her husband looked to rent a home in Northern Virginia in February, they often received the same response. Sorry, but someone else offered to pay more rent. And Mrs. Jones said, we didn't even know you could do that. So once again, bidding wars have long been a staple of hot housing markets where buyers compete with offers above the seller's listing price. Now, these contests are becoming more commonplace in the rental market. Real estate agents from New York to Chicago and Atlanta say they see more people than ever making offers above asking to lease homes and apartments that they will never own. Interesting, isn't it? In fact, things are changing even with rent control apartments. As you can see here, a New York City panel approved rent increases of 3.25% starting in the fall at properties covered by the city's rent stabilization rules, the largest rise in nearly a decade. But for the city's unregulated rental stock, which accounts for about half of the apartments in New York City, it is open season on rent hikes, meaning there is no limit as to how much rent can go up. And in popular high-end neighborhoods, more renters are making over ask offers, real estate agents are saying. Things are not cooling off. It seems that the rental market, it's really, really hot right now because from what I see here, large renter landlords also report having more business that they can handle. In any given week, we get over 13,000 leads for only 200 homes available. In fact, the median U.S. asking rent passed $2,000 for the first time in May. And again, I sound like a broken record, I know, but I wanted to make it clear so that everybody knows it and it's on the same page. So yeah, rent is surpassing $2,000 for the first time in May, according to real estate company Redfin, and it has risen 15% over the past 12 months. If more high-income people enter hot rental markets and the supply of new homes for them to rent or buy doesn't substantially increase, rents are poised to keep rising, housing analysts say. And of course, we can't leave the topic of interest rates on the side. Rising interest rates also mean that builders are likely to build less because fewer people can afford a new home when borrowing rates are higher. So if builders are not building, that means there's less inventory available in the market, which contributes to a higher cost of living and possibly higher bidding wars, not just for houses to be bought, but also properties to be rented. And just to prove you the irony of the situation, many renters don't stop at offering a higher rental price. Some are following other parts of the home buyer playbook, such as drafting pick-me love letters that introduce themselves to a landlord and make an emotional appeal. Others are asking previous landlords to write them recommendations as if they're applying for a job. This is something that you would normally see for people who are desperate to buy that dream home. Now, they're not even buying a dream home. They're doing all of this just to secure a rental. In fact, some apartments are going now 10 to 15% over the asking price. And just to show you a story over here, earlier this month, a client succeeded by preemptively offering $1,000 over the asking price for a 3-bedroom apartment near downtown Chicago that was listed for $4,000. So listing price for an apartment was $4,000 and the client offered $5,000 and they did not get the apartment. We did not win it by a landslide by any means. So, wow. An extra $1,000, I'd rather put that towards a mortgage, but that's just my personal opinion. What's yours? And just so you know, this isn't just happening in affluent neighborhoods where tenants feel the pressure to pay for above the asking price. In fact, it's happening across the board. So we have an example here from a Atlanta housekeeper, Tabitha Robinson, and her family. They have been looking to move back in April, and she found a 3-bedroom house listed for $1,325. And then the listing agent warned her that they were already see other applications on the home. And so according to what we see here, she ended up offering $1,500 for that rental, which is, by the way, a stretch for her budget, but that's what it took for her to finally get a hold of that home. So rents are going up and are definitely going up. And here is the Redfin report that all of these prior articles keep mentioning. Once again, rental market tracker, typical US asking rent surpasses $2,000 for the first time in May. And in cities like Cincinnati, Seattle, and Nashville, rents are up over 30%. And in cities like Austin, it has gone up nearly 50%. So that's a lot of money, right? Now, I want to take a moment to remind you that if you like this episode, feel free to hit the like button right here below so you can help this episode rank and help others like you looking for information of this kind. And if you happen to know somebody who will find this information useful, feel free to share the love and send this episode their way so you can help change their lives for the better. Back to the episode. So once again, we have this chart here summarizing rent in May 2022. It's 2002, an increase of 2% month over month, which means an increase of 15.2% year over year. Once again, it is great news for those who are investing in real estate and are collecting rent. But for those who are actually considering buying, but they're not sure because they want to wait for prices to come down, think about it twice because according to the reports that we're seeing here, it might not happen for you. So you might need to expedite your decision-making process and choose what's the best option for you in this case, right? So median national asking rents, once again, back in 2019 was somewhere around the 1600s, and then it went up to 1738 in 2021, and now we're talking about over $2,000 in 2022. And if you are an investor and you happen to invest in any of these cities, Austin, Nashville, Seattle, Cincinnati, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, New York, Nassau County in New York, which is in Long Island, and New Brunswick in New Jersey, congratulations, because you are experiencing the fasting raising rents, which hopefully will help you offset any of the inconveniences that you might have experienced during the pandemic. And hopefully you're enjoying some amazing cash flow today. Some of the metro areas where rents have declined, this is something for you to keep an eye on. We're talking about Milwaukee, we have Kansas City and Minneapolis. And here below, it's a list of rent increases across the board in the US. I will definitely leave the link to this article down below in the description box. So now it is time for you to make a decision. Do you want to continue renting or do you want to become a homeowner? And for those who are considering becoming homeowners or real estate investors, I want to invite you to check out this webinar and where you're going to learn how to invest in real estate the right way, how to run the numbers the right way so you have a profitable investment that could help you take care of the mortgage payment and also your cost of living. So the link to the webinar is right here and also down in the description box below, and I will be seeing you at the webinar. Take care. Bye-bye.